This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 594 for March 2nd, 2021. Coming up on today's show, how to talk to your kids about polyamory. That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I am your host, Minx, and yes, the dates on the show are largely aspirational as we're in mid-March, and I had intended to get this episode out on March 2nd, so I'm going to pretend like it's actually March 2nd and I put it out on time. But in case you're listening for the first time, this is an adult show about really lascivious things like honesty and communication about sex and relationships. If you're under 18, please stop listening and visit scarletteen.com. Now, the first couple minutes here are usually where we do a little bit of host chat, and lustyguy and I talk about what's going on in our lives. He is sadly not joining me this episode, and really, I was trying to think of things to put in the host chat section that would be interesting and engaging and relatable. And really, there's not much. It's the pandemic. It's same old, same old. We're sitting here dreaming of being vaccinated and traveling and hopping on a plane to Hawaii and staying as long as we can. But none of that's happening yet because in our state, we aren't even on the vaccination list, not through any of the current phases that have been delineated. So maybe sometime in May, we just have to keep waiting. On the bright side, though, we are getting a little bit more spring-like weather. We're getting our faux springs here in Seattle. And I have been biking a little bit more. I actually bike through the entire winter. It's just more enjoyable now. Like this weekend, we had a beautiful sunny day, and I actually did the longest bike ride I've ever done, which was over 42 miles. So I am super proud of myself. And this week, I'm shopping for a new saddle for my bike because, ow, my butt hurts. And not in the fun way. Well, I guess it was because of something fun, but not like sexy fun. There have been quite a few really interesting developments in terms of polyamory and legality and in news coverage of late. So we have a pretty beefy poly in the news section today. The most recent one is, did you hear about the 3 Dads and a Baby book? Yep. There is a new book out called 3 Dads and a Baby, and it's drawing a lot of mainstream media attention to good poly parenting, which is also the topic of our show today, as it turns out. It's telling the story of 3 medical professionals, 3 guys who won the right in California to be listed on their kids' birth certificates as 3 equal legal parents. This is a first in the U.S. Now, it's only California, but it does set a state precedent that other poly-type families in California could cite. And if some brave families in other states wanted to point to this as a precedent, it could be something that could be taken up to the Supreme Court. Although now that I think about it, we probably don't want this particular Supreme Court trying that case. Also, several people sent me these articles about Caroline Rose Guiliani when they first came out. So this is the daughter of Rudy Giuliani, who is the former mayor of New York and the bumbling, idiotic, lying former personal lawyer of Donald Trump. Ugh, I just hate saying that name. I'll just call him what I usually call him, Twitler. So she recently came out with a personal memoir in Vanity Fair. The title's a little off. The title is A Unicorn's Tale, 3 Ways Sex with Couples Has Made Me a Better Person. That came out at the beginning of this month. But reportedly, the story is really full of intelligent insights about her life as a thoughtful and fearless and authentic sexual person. And one last poly in the news article, also around multi-person domestic partnership, kind of like the first one we cited. So in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the States, the Cambridge City Council passed a long-awaited multi-domestic partnership ordinance in early March. So the new Polyamory Legal Advocacy Coalition got the jump on the news media. They issued a press release first, and they were central to rewriting the original ordinance proposal to include protections for poly households that are realistic and solid, which was an improvement over apparently neighboring Somerville's multi-domestic partnership ordinance that was passed last summer. I'll provide links to the Poly in the News coverage of all these articles, but there really is a lot of exciting stuff happening. I'm really pleased that we are moving beyond the personal essays about, hey, I'm poly and it's different and it's cool, which is fine. And of course, the Caroline Giuliani is exactly that. But now we're actually getting a little bit of legal coverage, which is really nice to hear, I have to say. If you have questions, comments, or feedback, you can call 802-505-POLY or email polyweekly@gmail.com and attach an MP3 file with your questions. If you'd like to book us for your online event, I really, really miss speaking and teaching our classes, and Lustyguy and I love to do that together. So if you have a group that would like to do an online class for us, please email lustyguy@polyweekly.com, even if you don't have a lot of money, and we will see if we can find a way to make it work for you. I am excited to welcome to the podcast for the very first time, Ashley Robertson. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks. Hi, guys, gals, non-binary pals. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Ashley identifies as a feminine, bi-curious, ethically solo-polyamorous, sexual submissive. With over a decade of experience in the BDSM community, she isn't shy of perverse topics. Yay! She's a liberated... She's a liberated, ethical slut who wishes to share with others the freedom of sexuality without shame. Again, welcome to your debut podcast appearance.
Thank you. I hope I have lots of stories to share.
I hope so too. You are really interesting to me and hopefully to our listeners because you run a childcare and you teach sex positivity and sexuality, not just for adults, but also for kids. And that's an area, since I don't have kids, is a big point of weakness with me. So let's start off with the question that I get asked a lot and I have to answer according to a book as opposed to my own experience, which is...
Okay, let's start there.
Yeah. So how do you explain polyamory or your gender ID or being a sex worker or what have you to kids, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old? How do you approach explaining something of a sexual nature to kids?
Well, I love this question because what I think a lot of people forget is that there is not one answer for this question. The perfect way to answer this question for any child is to have the conversation over and over and over and over again. Yes. We would never say, okay, you're in 6th grade. Now it's time to teach you how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and pre-algebra. We would never do that. It is a skill that is compounding based on a base level of information. And that's exactly how you would answer these questions with kids. So you would start with, okay, what do I say to my kid about me being poly? Well, first of all, you need to have conversations about what does it mean to have a relationship with a trusted adult versus an adult you do not yet trust. That's a ground level conversation that needs to be understood before you build upon it. Then after you have a 5-year-old that understands, okay, the neighbor next door who I don't know their name, I probably should not go into their house. That's not someone that I trust yet, is different than my dad, my mom, my grandma, someone that can intimately help me bathe and toilet, right? Those are very different adults. So when we have an understanding there, we can build. So that's how I would approach any of these questions. How do I explain gender to a child or a young adolescent? Well, we have to start with understanding identity happens in our mind, but biological sex is the outer parts you can see, and those do not have to be in alignment with each other. Those can be different. And my favorite resource for that question is the gender unicorn. And if you have a person that's feeling the gender unicorn is still a little bit too complex, you can also use the genderbread person, which simplifies it a little bit. So the idea here is that we are never expecting this to be a one-time conversation. You want to pick a baseline idea and build from there. So the baseline idea with poly would be, well, what's your favorite cookie? Okay, you like chocolate chip. What's your next favorite cookie? Oh, okay, you also like Thin Mints. Okay, what's your next favorite cookie? Snickerdoodles. Well, you know what? It's okay for you to like lots of different kinds of cookies. Some of them, you may even have trouble saying this is my first favorite and second favorite. Some of them you just might be like, oh, I like these 3 and I like them all the same amount. It is the same way with loving people. You can love people in a way that's like, I have more love for this person than this person, or you can have equal love for multiple people. So getting that baseline established and then from there, being able to answer more questions is a great way to approach these subjects with kids.
Now, I want to backtrack to something that you mentioned earlier because the thought came to my mind. And so I assume that some folks listening are also going to have this thought. You mentioned like parents as people that you can trust. Well, there's certainly cases when parents or step-parents or uncles or aunts are doing dangerous and harmful activities to children, and they should not be trusted. So would you like to clarify that in terms of how you would explain that to kids? Because, what if you're telling them to trust a parent that is abusing them, for example?
True, and that would be a little bit harder to generalize. The curriculum that I teach is called the Our Whole Lives curriculum. And within that curriculum, it begins as early as kindergarten. So we teach this to 5 and 6-year-olds. And there's a general rule that is taught to kids that says adults should never need help from a child. So in this way, we're trying to protect kids from being manipulated because of their good nature, their good heart. So if an adult, a parent even, is saying, oh, I need your help to do this thing that isn't really something a child should be asked for help with, that would be how the rule is explained. There's an entire workshop where we go through scenarios and role plays and examples, and it's sometimes hard to have these conversations with kids this young and say, a doctor should still always ask permission before they perform something on your body. An adult should go with you into the doctor's office. And then there's always the why. So the goal is that we have children leave this workshop understanding that a parent's responsibility to be a trusted adult is someone that is looking out for their safety and helping them grow. So that is the role and the job of parents. So if your parent is not looking out for your safety or helping you grow, then they are not to be a trusted adult.
It's really interesting because me as a non-parent, I keep thinking like an adult about all the ways in which those things could be misinterpreted. An adult can say they're looking out for your safety and helping you grow while they're hitting you. I know that we as adults understand how that's a great general rule, but parts of it can be flawed. It makes me admire, I guess I should say, the work of having to do this with children because, as you say, those single definitions don't fit everything. Even in a workshop, some things might slip by and a child may think that a harmful situation applies to them. So I guess it's my way. I'm not asking you to give a solution to that right now because I don't think there is one, but it does make me admire the complexity of simplifying things to a 5-year-old.
Yes, it is very difficult. Yes. And it's especially There's one particular strategy as part of this curriculum called the know, go, tell strategy. And having and helping kids practice using a strong voice to say no to you as a teacher, and then having them practice getting away quickly, and then having them practice to tell what's happening. It really is powerful when you're in the moment, in the workshop with the kids, saying, you need to have this skill in case this were ever to be useful. So I want you to stop giggling, and I want you to really be serious and to use your imagination and pretend like someone's doing something they're not supposed to do. And we're going to really practice this know, go, tell strategy. So it's real work. And I will also say, if you ever have the opportunity for your child, if you're listening, to participate in an Our Whole Lives workshop, it's very well done and balanced so that students leave knowing that the majority of people are good. The majority of people are trustworthy. The majority of people are caring and loving, and they don't need to live in fear because now they have these tools and these strategies.
I love those tools of practicing saying no, go, and tell, because I think we all need that, frankly. In fact, years ago, I taught a class to professional adults, a communications class, and one of the activities I taught was your boss asks you to do X. Say no. And I actually had people role play the activity. Mm-hmm. And at least half of them, usually women, could not actually say no. They would say, well, maybe later, or all right, if I can do it on Tuesday, or maybe just half an hour. And I said, no, your job is to say no. You can just say no. You don't have to give an excuse. You don't have to say you're sorry. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. And it was incredibly difficult for adults to say. So starting kids at a young age practicing saying no, I think is brilliant. Now, I touched on this earlier, but I'd love to find out more from you. You actually run a childcare as your full-time day job. I'm curious. I'm sure that you have opportunities to apply the bodily autonomy and sex-positive activities that, you teach in classes on a daily basis. But I'm kind of curious what working with kids teaches you about your own life and your own health and sexual health.
I think that adults become so ingrained in the world of language that we forget how powerful our bodies and our sensations are. And working with kids reminds me and brings me back to that over and over again. So I have a very non-traditional daycare, and I don't separate out the infants from the walkers, the crawlers, the runners. And so because of that, it creates these very genuine experiences of needing to care for a mistake that has hurt someone else, especially like a younger child, like one that's just learning how to walk. You have a 2.5-year-old running excited and they bump them down, and that 2.5-year-old can instantly see that there has been an infraction, a mistake. And it's not because I did anything. I can literally sit back and let that play out, because at this point I have modeled so many times what's expected that just the body language of that 12-month-old and the sounds the 12-month-old makes and the facial expressions in that moment tell that 2.5-year-old, oh, I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to be connected with this human. I need to check for if they're okay. And adults are just so stuck in this world of words. And I love that kids remind me we are these very sensual beings, and those senses tie us to each other.
Was that a deliberate choice to put all ages together? You said that's different. I don't have kids, so I don't really know what childcare is like. Why did you decide to make that choice?
Yes, first of all, I have looked at many in-home daycares, and a lot of the infant areas are set apart with like baby gates. And so there's like foam matting on the floor and babies in a cage, basically. And I don't care for that, because I think there's got to be some psychological stuff growing up for a year behind plastic bars. I just think that's not natural. So there's that. And then I also feel like infants who have a chance to explore a home environment that has been intentionally set up to be as safe as possible means they have access to more sensory input early on, and they can therefore process that input, where if they're just stuck with the same 7 toys within reach, then that's all they have to experience. So I'd prefer that they have access to my pets and access to soft pillows and access to sharp corners, like within reason, so that they have a better experience of what their own bodies are capable of, including injury and falling and bumping, and also what other stimulation is like.
That's really interesting. I love that your day job is childcare. And in a sense, your hobby, the thing you do, your passion project, is also kind of about childcare, but specifically about sex-positive relationships with children. I love that.
Exactly. So it's pervasive. Every single diaper change begins with me saying, are you ready to have your diaper changed? And allowing there to be a no. Allowing there to be a space for the kid to say, I want to do what I'm still doing. And that constantly often happens. And I say, okay, I see that you're busy with the Play-Doh. I'm going to ask this friend first if they're ready, and then I'll come back to you. So it's this space of allowing a child to say no. And then within all of those diaper changes and all of that potty training, we're using appropriate anatomy terms so that kids understand their elbow, their penis, their chin, their eyebrow, their anus. It's just a word for a body part, and there's no shame associated with it.
Love that bodily autonomy starting with changing diapers. I know a lot of folks are doing that nowadays, and I absolutely love that it starts from infancy, that your body is your own, and you have to say yes before anyone touches it. Love that.
Yes. And I will say it's not always possible to always say yes. So there are times where I say, okay, I've given you a few more minutes with the Play-Doh and I'm coming back to see, are you ready now? Okay, you're still not ready now. I smell poop and I know that your body needs to be clean. So we're going to march to get our diaper changed. We're going to fly to get our diaper changed, but it is time for us to clean your body. So in that moment, it's a way of me acknowledging their no and also stating my responsibility and then saying, but I'm not going to do this in a way that is oppressive or rude or full of conflict. We're going to have some fun in the process. Here we go.
That sounds like a great way to approach it.
It's definitely non-traditional, that's for sure. I hope it becomes more of the mainstream way of doing things.
Me too. For something a little different now, I told you in advance that we started this new segment for our guests called Ranty Pants, where you can spend a minute or two ranting about whatever you like. It can be related to your work, or it can be about people who don't use turn signals, the Oxford comma, anti-maskers, anything. So it's your time to rant. What would you like to rant about?
I'm going to rant about skincare.
Okay, let's go for it. Clock is ticking.
So I am a person with 3 college degrees, and I have absolutely no clue how or where to find advice on what skincare products my skin should be using. I don't understand why it is so hard to find the right skincare product, whether it be moisturizer or toner or cleanser. And also, what are those things even? What are they? What do they do? What order are they supposed to be done in? Because I have done research to try to figure out what order I'm supposed to be doing these things in, and I can't figure it out. Oh, that's my rant. My rant is that I would love it if there was some way for me to not have to spend $75 on a bottle of face product to be able to understand that it's not right for me. There we go.
I love it. And you realize now that you've said that, presumably near your phone or computer, Facebook is only going to be showing you ads for skincare products, right?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Go. So it's going to make it even harder.
The thing is that wouldn't even be new, because recently I've been talking about this with some of my friends, and so that's all I'm seeing already. And I'm just like, but that's $120 for that teeny vial of stuff that's supposed to make my wrinkles go away, and I don't actually know that it would work. So the backstory here is that when I was in high school, I actually won a science fair about skincare products. So it's been something I've actually studied. I've actually grown and cut little tiny lumbriculus variegatus worms, measured their regrowth. I mean, like, I've actually studied this, and I don't know what products to put on my face.
Okay, so after that, you have to tell people how to reach you, because I'm sure that we have people who have skincare products that they love and would love to recommend to you. But also, I'm sure we have a number of skincare consultants out there who would love to give you a consultation. So for that, or, for sex education, either one.
Right.
How can folks find you?
So I curate content for a Facebook group called Let's Talk About Sex Ed with Miss Ashley. And so people can find me there. And I am on FetLife because I am a kinky person and have been for a very long time. I'm on FetLife as Miss Leanne, MissLeiGhanne. And
we'll provide links to those in the show notes. Ashley, it has been absolutely wonderful chatting with you. Before I let you go, since it's our first time, and we did wander around a bit. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you wish I had?
I think like a one takeaway tip that I'd love to share with parents who are interested in having sex positive family culture and being an intentional parent in this realm would be read with your kid. Read and read and read. There are so many amazing books out, especially recently, that are gender nonspecific. There's just so many about consent and my body is mine and feeling words. Read with your kids and they will become wonderful humans.
Do you by chance have a curated list of books you recommend for parents?
I do. They are linked in my Facebook group and they are organized by subject.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to put a link to that in the show notes. Ashley, it has been delightful to have our first interview together. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And by the way, I say coming in, but we're recording over the internet, of course, because we can't see other humans.
Right. And science matters.
And science matters. And thanks again to Ashley Robertson for taking the time to join us today. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I really hope you did too. And if you'd like to leave a comment about that or engage with other listeners, you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/polyweekly, on Twitter at polyweekly or at cunning.minx, on Instagram at cunning.minx, or TikTok as cunning.minx. It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by friendly polyamorists everywhere. This week's Happy Poly Moment is from Mark J., who says, "Welcome back. Thank you. I've been listening to your show for at least a decade and missed you during your sabbatical. Now that you're back, I wanted to share this moment from over a year ago. I'm in a 6-person poly family that's been living together since 1985, before the word polyamory existed. I've been with my wife for 38 years and have a new life partner who has been with me for the past 6 years. She's also married and lives elsewhere in town with her family. One weekend, she was over at my house for a date. The rest of the family decided they were going out to dinner. This was in the before times. And she and I were going to go out later. We were in my bedroom and my wife said through the door, "Bye, we're leaving now." My partner said to me, "Ooh, we could have sex on the kitchen island," not realizing that my wife could hear us. From the hall, we heard, "No!" And our eyes both got big. "It's on wheels. You'll get hurt." We both cracked up. This is just par for the course in my smart-ass poly family. I love my life. Mark, thank you so much for sharing that. I love your life too. That sounds like a lot of fun. And very a compassionate wife that doesn't want your partner to be injured. And I'd like to welcome our new polyweekly playmate, Evo, to the polyweekly Playmates. And thanks to all of our polyweekly Playmates for their generous donations this week. We are a free resource. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to polyamory. And those donations keep the podcast free for everyone both inside and outside the community. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's not all about the sex.